What about when you come up against him? What then?
I'll fight harder, I always have.
Take a look. His speed, his ferocity, his training. I see the power of belief. I see the League of Shadows resurgent.
All right. This is round number 3-ish, I believe, for me, with OTR swagger, and I've got to say, this has been one of the toughest races when it comes to ladder matches. This time around, we are on the Bon Voyage course, which is semi-flat, and really the bumps, because you can't even call them hills. The bumps that we have in the course were the only reason why I'm on the disc wheels right now. You can see me there in kind of second position in the zip disc wheels with my SL8, fully upgraded to level 5. And so I am, ready to fight, ready to, work for the win for the Dirty Crabz team. And with that said, this is our roster. So for tonight, it is myself, Riz, trainer Preston, and Simon. And on the swagger team, there is Greg Lewis, Michael Yole, Drew Polhill, which that name should sound familiar because he has outperformed every single time we race against them, M. Glace, and William Lloyd. And I've got to say, I feel like they intentionally went out and recruited some absolute diesels in order to race this race, which good for them. That's how the game is played. That's how these ladder matches go. It's, you bring the best of the best together to go up against others, other teams' best of the best. Um, and while we do have a couple guys that are, you know, their numbers are a little bit lower in terms of display, they are still strong riders. Like, as much as I would love to just go based off of the colors there. Pole Hill's red stripe across the middle of his team is jarring when you first look at it. But Preston and Simon on our team are strong racers, strong riders. They're very good, very smart, work hard. So they are, anyone that looks at our team and thinks like, oh, we got this because of these two guys. No, absolutely not. You never know what's going to happen um, in any given race. A- any race, anyone can underperform. So just wanted to throw that caveat out there because this became a fantastic race. Now jumping to a minute to go. Um, I'm trying to make sure. So you see the ones in the text field. I'm trying to make sure that my camera view is in the right spot. I didn't realize I was actually typing into the text field, and so I almost caused my own catastrophe in the very beginning by changing the camera view. And really, what I was looking to do is see how many people were on discs and how many people were on um, just deep rim wheels. And so mostly everybody was on disc. There were a couple uh, NV89s out there. Um, I don't think the discs had a huge advantage. I know Zwift Insider put out an article where it does show, some advantage there. But truly, I think, this was a racer's race. And so if you know how to race, you know, you can do some damage. And so this is where we decided to pull on them what they did to us. So you can see one of their racers, immediately go out hard. I think that was Lloyd, and then Ryan Trainer up front for us. I push out hard, and our goal initially was let's just go, like go off the gun, let's push hard. So I was absolutely glad that I did the 400-watt drills the other day, where I was doing 400 watts, ranging from a minute to 2 minutes. I couldn't quite finish the rest of that workout. I was trying to get up to 400 watts for 5 minutes, but by 2 minutes and 15 seconds, my legs were dead. They were cooked. And so, I was glad that I did that drill, because that effort in this stage felt normal. It felt comfortable. I knew what to expect. I knew how hard I would be breathing. I knew how high my heart rate would get. So I knew what to expect. Um, and as we start rolling here, things settle down a little bit. Um, and by settle down, I mean we're just kind of cruising right now in the fields of France. And so as we get to, as we're kind of still cruising along, Paul Hill decides to put in the chat, how's everyone's day today? And I kind of felt like that was a jab in our side. Him being the absolute strongest rider of this race, I feel like that was kind of a flex of like, hey, when's the racing gonna start, type of deal. He's a cool guy, and he does chat, like you saw in the beginning. He wishes everyone a good race, and super cool guy, and always leaves great comments. So, but at that time, I was just like, uh, you know, in game mode, in race mode, I'm just like, oh, really? Like that's how you're gonna play this? Like you're just, you know, like you're not the strongest guy, and we're just gonna have a fun race. Um, we were this being a sort of rematch type race. I think we were all kind of ready to, we were ready for blood. We were ready to die on our bikes, to win this race. And so after passing that first sprint banner, our team wanted to do an attack. We wanted to kind of set the stage to, kind of show that, hey, we're ready to race, we're ready to fight, and we're ready to, you know, really take this to the finish. And so we all launch and push as hard as we can. And like I said before, those 400-watt efforts definitely came in handy, because you could see all the red that lit up, or orange that lit up on the right hand side. Full Hill's still doing about 9-10 watts. I end up rolling off the front. Um, and then Riz comes through me, and we keep pushing the effort down, in order to really just extend Pole Hill's responsibility to chase, make him work a little bit harder. And so as we all start to come together again, he caught up, Lloyd caught up, we start slowing it down a bit, and just kind of hang out behind Pole Hill. And so this is where I would say the disc had the most advantage. That 1-ish minute window. And so part of the topic that I wanted to kind of touch on is, the use of power, the use of, your 1 minute power, 5 minute power, 20-minute power. So Ryan Condon, fantastic channel. I'm sure everybody knows him, especially if you watch my channel. I'm sure you know him. Fantastic racer and Zwifter. And so he put out a video recently, where I left a comment on his video, because the one area that he and I don't see eye to eye 100% on, when it comes to racing tactics and power usage, is the 20-minute power. Everything else, I 100% believe he's spot on, especially for Z racing. I think he's got that nailed. He's a fantastic racer at the top of his category, and racing really well. The one area that I don't 100% agree with is 20-minute power. His view is 20-minute power doesn't really matter in Z racing, or racing. I don't want to say, I don't want to put words in his mouth and say that it's only for Z racing, but I will say that 20-minute power matters beyond Z racing. And so as you can see on this script, Pole Hill's got as you saw in the numbers before, Pole Hill has the strongest power, period. Strongest 20-minute power out of our team. Ryan has the strongest 20-minute power. So most of the time, Ryan is the one that sets the pace of the team. You see Riz out there, or sorry, Ryan, out there right now, 2 seconds out. He was, he'll hammer it down at 3.6, 3.8, whatever his 20-minute power is, and he'll stay out there forever. And if you don't chase, if as you see, we're letting the gap open up. If you don't chase, that sets the tone for the race, because now Ryan's out there, and in our case, we're not going to work to bring Ryan back. We're going to let them work to bring him back. And so someone like Pole Hill, who has the strongest 20-minute power in this race, could easily bring Ryan back, and the rest of us benefit from that. The rest of us, ultimately will essentially draft off of him. And that's kind of what Pole Hill does for a while. Pole Hill ends up on the front for a really long time at one point in the race. And so with Ryan being out there, um, you see, we're just kind of all in a way coasting along. And as we start to hit this sprint, um, the wattage comes up a little bit, but not really for, you know, we weren't expecting to do anything on this, again, because Ryan's up the road. And so we're just kind of letting them work. You see the, Arrow Helmet come out, and, orange numbers come out, and a couple of their guys start to launch and push forward. And so we all, again, chase and, make sure that we stay. And this is where, I 100% agree with Ryan in that, Ryan Condon, in that 1 minute, 5 minute power, specifically that 1 minute power for scenarios like this, where, someone launches an attack and you chase. That is, you know, that is how this works. And you'll see where that my 1 minute power comes in handy at the very end. And so as we're all coming back together, you see Glace pushing a little bit hard off the front, but we just kind of all, push up the watts a little bit and, hold the wheel, catch back on. See a bunch of Scotty squirrels in there. So many Scotty squirrels. That's actually, I didn't notice that while I was racing, but so many of us in this race have Scotty the squirrel in our back pockets. And so that makes for a fun little Easter egg there. And so right now we're just kind of cruising till the next major attack happens. And so as we start to get through the cobbles here, we went about, 4-ish kilometers with nothing happen, but we decided to, hey, let's push forward again. Because at this point we've got, Ryan 30 seconds off the back, Preston's, 50 something seconds off the back. Lewis and Glace are kind of holding on by a thread. Same thing with Yol, are kind of holding on by a thread. And so we're pushing hard in order to, see if we can not only distance them, but, start to form a gap and start to really make this a 2-on-2 race as best as possible, or 2-on-3, however the dynamics end up, between myself and Riz and the OTR guys. And so we really want to see who's left for the fight for the finish here, because we know that if we can get first and second, then myself and Riz will maximize the amount of points we can get, and so that that then becomes a points game for the end of this race. And so as we get through this sprint, we just kind of cruising again. And getting back to my previous point, when it comes to 20-minute power, I feel like, again, with all of these surges that you have on a race like this, if you have a strong 20-minute power, not only can you handle these surges, but and then you can convert that into a longer distance gap where you can launch and kind of, you ultimately you back down the power from your 1 minute effort, where in my case, my 1 minute effort is about 570 watts, somewhere around there. I don't know what it is in watts per kilogram, but 570 watts. And so if I go, a full minute for 570 watts, and then back that down to my 5-minute power, which is right now 4.1 watts per kilogram. So in the 300s, if I can hold in the 300s for another, 4 or 5 minutes, and then back that down again to my 20-minute power, which is right now 3.4, which is somewhere in the vicinity of, 280 watts, and I can hold that, for the remainder of the stage. Now you're talking about a race winning gap. That's how you create distance between you and the people behind you, is, slowly ramping down that power. Now that's not actually how, power works. Especially the energy systems, that's not how that works. You end up, giving it all for your, 1 minute power, and then having to, go down to 0 and then recoup a little bit and then surge back up and back down, and so on and so forth. And so at this point, we're just kind of in the saddle, waiting to see when the next attack happens. And so as we hit the end of this sprint banner, which is part of the macaroon stage. If you've never raced it before, it goes in the opposite direction on the macaroon, but it is a good sprint. Because it's cobblestone, it's a little bit harder. So you see the OTR guys with some orange numbers push off the front. We surge to attack. Now they're two of their guys go off the front and just go hard. The other two guys, kind of back down the power really quickly. And so when we saw that, we were like, all right, let's keep up the power. Let's keep going. Yeah, we got a long way to go, but if we can make them, work a little bit harder to catch us now, we can then, um, really exhaust those two guys that didn't have the same punch as Paul Hill and Lloyd did. And so, or Paul Hill and Yul. So you see they're kind of all, coming together. We're still about a second off the front of them, and just kind of holding that pace. I didn't want to back down too far, but you see Paul Hill come up. And so as he came up, I was like, all right, perfect time for me to, get into his draft and sit in a little bit. So that way, I can kind of, get some recovery time in there. You see Riz come up, and same thing. We're just kind of, we're doing our best to not, you know, not continue that hard effort on our part, but let them, since they have the numbers, let them do the hard work. All right. And so as, you know, basically we settled in for a really long, kind of, cruising speed there. Pole Hill, manned the front for a little while, and you see, you know, Blaze starts to go off the front with strong numbers. I start to give chase. We've got 1.4 kilometers to go. You see Riz going, you see orange numbers on Pole Hill. And so, with Blaze going forward, kind of playing the steering game, I'm coming through the banner, and I decide to, you know, I'm off the front already. Might as well keep the pace going. I wasn't going to try and continue sprinting for another kilometer, but I was like, you know what? If I can stay in that 400-watt zone, I know exactly what that feels like. Because I did those drills the other day, I know I can hold this for another minute or two. And so I just kept the pace going. I had a little bit of a gap on Pole Hill. And these guys, they were about a second gap. Pole Hill starts to come up. As I'm easing the power a little bit, he comes up, catches up to me, gets in front. So I launch my draft, because I know at this point, if I can hold on to his wheel and just kind of stay there, we can bring this down to a sprint finish. I end up pushing off the front, so I just kept the momentum going. I didn't want to ease up at all. We are on a downhill, so it is a little bit easier to just kind of push and coast and stay at a good speed. You see I'm going 58 kilometers an hour on this, 2-ish% downhill. The speed drops down a little bit as I start to come up this riser. And so I start to push hard again as Pole Hill starts to launch his final attack there with 200 meters to go. And I just could not muster more than those, 400 or 500 watts to the end there. And as he created that 1 second or so gap, I was like, all right, I'm done. I'm cooked. I couldn't catch him again. And I got to say, man, one thing I love about sprinting is you find guys like this, that, holy smokes, man, they do not let you ease up at all. And so, that really became a battle of that last little over a kilometer. Who was going to have the most power? And again, Pole Hill had the power. He came through at the very end. This is one of those replays that I'm probably going to have on my personal phone, watching it over and over to build that frustration of I could have kept my pace a little bit. I could have gone a little bit harder for a little bit longer. It was only, I kind of eased up around 400 meters to go. I could have kept it going. That was, as you can see, I ended up with the green jersey. So obviously, I did good in terms of my sprinting. I just couldn't follow through there at the very end. And so Pole Hill came across the line first, me taking second. And then their guys came across, I think, third or fourth, and then Riz came in fifth after. And so we had, really good standings, really good showings, but ultimately their team, they brought their A squad, and it showed, and it truly showed. So what a fantastic race against the OTR Swagger team. And I got to say, if you're ever doing club ladder and you see their name come across your challenge page or challenge Just know that they're gonna fight, and they're gonna fight you till the bitter end. This was a fantastic race. So I hope to see them again. We're definitely gonna have to rematch, um, and just continue to work at making them work for us to win. So um, yeah, appreciate you guys, and I will catch you guys on the next race.